Ahead on our news tonight, find out the safe houses that may possibly be used to sell sex. Plus, a former senator brought up on charges of indecent assault. And later, why the national security chief is saying, quote, Negroes can't hold on to power forever. Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Candino Knowles. The Disaster Reconstruction Authority is investigating reports some of the domes in Spring City, Abaco are being used as brothels. That's according to DRA Executive Chairman Alex Storr, who says that's just one of the issues being probed. Jasmine Brown reports.
Some domes in one of the areas hardest hit by Hurricane Dorian in 2019 may be functioning as more than just temporary homes. The DRA executive chairman says there have been multiple reports that the structures are being used to sell sex.
I have had reports of illegal activity along that line and other things going on, and so we're investigating all of that.
Storr says it's possible the illegal activity could have been going on for months. He also stressed that so far they are only reports, but promised that if investigations show the domes are being used as brothels, there will be legal action.
Whatever happens, we'll make sure that we take the appropriate actions based in law. There's a joint task force based with several agencies, and once we go in, we're going to do proper assessment of what's going on and bring a proper resolution to it.
Storr's comments came moments after a press conference to announce the relaunch of the Abaco Hurricane Shelter and Community Center project. Abaco and Grand Bahama were devastated by Dorian, a monster Category 5 storm in September 2019. The storm caused $3.4 billion in damage and left thousands of people displaced in its immediate aftermath. Nearly 3 years later, some residents of those islands still live in tents and domes. Storr called it a vexing issue that the Davis administration will address.
The domes are one of the situations that are on our radar. Right now, I think there are 39 domes installed at what's called the Dome City. On our last check, I think 4 may be vacant, maybe more. And so we have teams going out to do surveys to find exactly who's in the dome, who should be in the dome, and to make sure that they reconcile.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Prime Minister Philip Davis announcing plans to build a solar field in 2023. The plan is for that field to be integrated with power generation at Bahamas Power and Light to reduce our carbon footprint. Berthany McDermott reports.
The Davis administration is looking to convert from fossil fuel to LNG and has committed to a solar field for Bahamas Power and Light by 2023. That's according to Prime Minister Philip Davis, who said government has its eyes on 100 acres of Crown land on New Providence to install the solar panels, which will be done by an American company.
We have already committed to have at least by the first part of next year about at least a solar field that will provide at least 60 megs of electricity power. So we'll have a mix of fossil fuel and solar power.
An agreement in this regard, he said, should be finalized in the coming weeks. Davis said all this is in hopes of reducing carbon footprints. He said experts have predicted that it's difficult for the Bahamas to move completely away from fossil fuels.
Many steps in reducing our reliance on it will help. And so yes, insofar as BPL is concerned, that powers our electricity, we hope to convert from the more heavy fuel that we use that contribute more emissions.
BPL has expressed interest in the construction of an LNG regasification facility and onshore import terminal. Shell North America was expected to build the facility as well as new power generation at the Clifton Power Station. Davis said a team is also working to install solar panels on the family island.
This weekend past, a team went into Acklands, Crooked Island, Lake Warner to assess government buildings for the purposes of installing solar panels as a pilot as we move around the islands, and hopefully we have most of our islands will be on solar within the next 2-3 years, and that's the goal as we speak today.
The Prime Minister also speaking about the issue of oil drilling, saying there are no active oil licenses before the government for consideration at this moment. This as Bahamas Petroleum Company, now Challenger Energy Group, has expressed interest in renewing a third license for oil exploration in the Bahamas. However, the Prime Minister said the concern shouldn't be about oil drilling in the Bahamas.
When the cry about drilling was in the air, and there was much controversy over the fact of drilling, my response was always, look, don't be concerned about drilling. Be concerned about exploitation. Because drilling is only to discover whether or not you have oil. The fact that you have oil doesn't necessarily mean that you have to extract the oil.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Meanwhile, one union leader in Grand Bahama says he's happy about several initiatives coming from the Prime Minister's budget communication last week, especially a promised increase in minimum wage. Sasha Lightbourne has the story.
Welcoming several initiatives from the 2022-2023 budget communication made by the Prime Minister last week, Vice President of the Trade Union Congress in Grand Bahama, Kirkland Russell, says he's looking forward to debate on minimum wage and livable wage. He says unions have advocated for an increase to minimum wage for years, and an increase would be long overdue for the public and private sectors.
We believe that the $210 is far too low for workers in this country, and I believe that where workers deserve more, in a lot of cases, they are not getting more.
Russell says he believes employers are simply comfortable paying employees a $210 minimum.
There has to be swiftly a livable wage mechanism in the country by which workers are paid and given increment.
Debate on the 2022-2023 budget begins tomorrow at 10 a.m. in the House of Assembly. Reporting for Our News, I'm Sasha Lightbourne.
A former senator has been brought up on assault charges. We've got more on that story in a moment. But first, it's time now for your first look at temperatures. And meteorologist Greg Thompson is standing by in the Weather Center. Greg?
Thanks, Kendina, and welcome everybody for our first look at weather. We have a steamy evening outside our studios right now. Temperatures near the 80-degree mark under cloudy skies. The winds are kind of light out of the east-southeast at 8 miles per hour, and it feels like temperature factoring in the humidity, a humid 86 degrees. On our satellite, a lot of moisture still streaming across the Bahamas out of the Western Caribbean, generating some scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms. Upper level, low spinning just to the north of us, helping to trigger those showers and thunderstorms. We will continue to see that activity tonight, most of the activity staying west of us, but more showers in the forecast tonight through tomorrow. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
And still to come on Our News, find out the assault charges brought against a former senator, plus reaction tonight from the National Security Minister on the retirement of the police chief, and the details of a full-scale emergency drill at Lynden Pindling International Airport. It's all coming up when Our News returns.
Got size at 6'5". Hi, this is Samir.
Former Senator Trevor Wiley has been accused of indecently assaulting a 12-year-old. The 62-year-old denied the charge as he was arraigned before Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt. Wiley was granted $4,000 bail and is expected back in court on December 16th. Meanwhile, as questions continue to swirl around the sudden death of recently released sex offender Alden Scott, Minister of National Security Wayne Monroe says the outcome of the investigation could determine how the public is notified about the release of sexual offenders.
The first step is the cause of death, the circumstances surrounding the death. So let us say that it is a natural causes, accidental, something like that. then that doesn't tip the scale against public notification. If we find that it's in a conflict initiated by the person released, then again, that doesn't tip the scales against public notification. If we find that it happened in circumstances it's abundantly clear that you have vigilantes who will hunt down and kill persons of which there's public notification, all of the jurisprudence shows that that militates harshly against public notification, and we would have to see what other steps can be taken.
When Monroe announced that Scott was added to the sex offenders register, the National Security Minister noting at that time that Scott was deemed a significant risk to public safety. Scott was released from prison earlier this month but died in hospital days later, according to his brother, Ronald Scott. Scott saying that his brother was found bleeding from the nose on a dirt road. Police say an autopsy will determine his exact cause of death.
Well, all sudden deaths are considered suspicious until they can be classified one way or the other, whether it's a suspected crime or not. I have to wait to hear a briefing on the cause of death. I haven't been briefed on that yet, and the attending circumstances.
And National Security Minister Wayne Monroe also weighing in on Police Commissioner Paul Roll's decision to demit office in just over a month. Jasmine Brown has his candid comments in this report.
He's the most senior policeman. He's had a stellar career. And, Negroes don't have to hold on to power forever and ever. Amen.
That's how National Security Minister Wayne Monroe summed up his views on the Police Commissioner Paul Roll's decision to demit office on July 5th, after serving in the post since March 30th, 2020. Commissioner Roll told the press on Monday that he wanted to leave in April but decided to stay on because the Bahamas is hosting the Association of Caribbean Commissioners of Police's 36th annual general meeting and conference, which is being held at Bahamas this week. Like Roll, the National Security Minister is also denying the police chief is being forced out after nearly 40 years on the force.
The Commissioner did advise myself and the Prime Minister of his desire to demit office. I think this was in March. Since then, he has been making sure that I see the state of, for instance, Grand Bahama, a number of other places that he was working on and didn't get to complete, and he is briefing me on matters that he had in the pipeline in his mind that he hadn't completed. He has decided that he wishes to demit office, and he is taking steps to make sure that the handover is an orderly one.
Monroe went on to insist it is a good thing when leaders are able to pass on the baton.
It is an encouraging thing in this country to see that persons aren't trying to die in office.
As for who is being eyed to become the next commissioner of police, Monroe is mum, explaining that will be determined after a process involving the Prime Minister. Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
When our news comes back from the break, scenes from today's full-scale emergency drill at LPIA. And later, Greg is back with what you need to know about weather conditions for the rest of the week in your extended weather forecast. The details when our news returns.
Got size at 6'5". Hi, this is Shamik.
This is our news. Welcome back. Scores of emergency personnel and vehicles swarming western New Providence today in a simulated situation that unfolded near Lynden Pindling International Airport. Authorities conducting a full-scale emergency drill to satisfy local and international aviation requirements on emergency plans for aircraft operations. The scene today simulating the worst-case scenario for Family Island air travelers, an inbound flight with engine trouble that eventually crashes on its approach to land in Nassau. Agencies in today's exercise, including EMS personnel, the police and defense forces, Civil Aviation Authority, Air Accident Investigation Authority, and the National Emergency Management Agency, among others. Nassau Airport Development Company Vice President of Operations Deborah Colby says putting LPIA's emergency plan to the test allows all agencies involved, to assess their individual level of preparedness and orchestrate a coordinated response. And Jazz Chisholm making his return to the field for the Marlins. Meanwhile, dragon boat racing to debut in the Bahamas. Here's Marcellus Hall.
All right, thanks, Candino. Welcome to our sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. Well, Jazz Chisholm has been off the field for a while due to a bit of a hamstring pull. Finally making his return to the Marlins roster. Would it be a win? Well, let's find out. Jazz Chisholm making his return to the Miami Marlins lineup after a stint on the injured list. Jazz making his customary start at second base and leading off. Would have a rough day at the plate, and understandably so, perhaps some rust setting in. He would go 0 for 4 on the day. And the Marlins, they take another loss. Chisholm and the Marlins will be back in action, bringing the Jazz along slowly. He is expected to once again be back in the lineup. We'll see how that turns out. We'll keep you fully posted on that as it goes on. Meanwhile, something new coming to the shores of the Bahamas as far as sailing, or rather sports, is concerned. President of the Bahamas Chinese Dragon Boat Association, KK Tong, excited to introduce dragon boat racing, potentially one of the newest sports in the Bahamas. Dragon boat racing has over 2,000 years of history in China. Now the Bahamas Chinese community is looking to bring that sport right here to our shores, hoping that a new sporting discipline will catch root and draw in some sports and visitors to our shores.
Well, the sport of dragon boat racing is pretty much the Bahamian Chinese community's way of, is our contribution back to the Bahamas. It's a sport that's all inclusive with children and adults all the way up to in their 80s. They can participate in such a sport, and it's also a great tourism product, sports tourism product. It can bring thousands of participants to our shores to compete, and that's just the people that compete, and then the people that's watching them also, right, will be coming into our shores if we're good at this and we can hold international competition. So it's just an all-around great sport for us.
The Bahamas Chinese Boat Association getting a pretty sizable donation of 8 boats from the Chinese Embassy. Training sessions are set for this weekend, June 3rd and 4th. Vice President of the International Dragon Boat Federation, Matt Smith. And there it is, your check on sports for you here on this Tuesday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you, Candino.
All right, thanks a lot, Marcellus. Well, still to come on our news, Greg is back in the Weather Center with news of more rain, as well as what you need to know about conditions for the rest of the week in your extended weather forecast. Stay with us.
Got size at 6'5". Hi, this is Shamika.
Welcome back to our news. It's time now for your extended weather forecast, and Greg is back in the Weather Center with a look at conditions for the rest of the week. Lots of rain. Greg?
Thanks again, Candino, and welcome back, everybody, for our second look at weather. A lot of moisture still coming out of the Caribbean across our area, emanating out of the Western Caribbean. Also, we have the remnants of Agatha, which was an Eastern Pacific storm moving across Central America and Mexico, still pumping a lot of moisture out across most of the Caribbean and across our area. We notice a little spin just to the north of the Bahamas. That's an upper level low that's actually helping to pull a lot of this moisture across areas. So we're looking at a wet week and possibly even an even wetter weekend as we continue to track what's left of Agatha across the central portions of the Central America. Agatha is expected to move into the Gulf of Mexico, the Western Caribbean, high chance for some formation over the next couple of days. National Hurricane Center giving this a medium to high chance for formation. So we're looking at anywhere in this general area for some formation, and that moisture stream will continue to pump across us. So by the weekend, we're looking at increasing showers and a wet weekend expected. Couple of computer models, one showing it moving across Florida and the other moving directly across the Bahamas. We will continue to monitor the progress of this system. We're asking you to stay tuned as we continue to track what is left of Ida, and if it moves into our area, could possibly become a tropical depression, maybe even a tropical storm. Keep you abreast on that over the next couple of days. Taking a look at what's happening out there. Development factors, warm waters, less wind shear. These are going to be the factors that are going to help to this system to get its act together, and of course, as I mentioned, moving across our area by the weekend. Boating forecast for the northwest and central Bahamas tonight through tomorrow. Your winds will be out of the southeast at 10 to 15 knots. They will fall light and variable at times. Your seas running 2 to 4 feet over the ocean. High tide will be at 9:33 tonight. But the southeast Bahamas still asking you to exercise some caution down there. Slightly lighter winds, east to southeast, 15 knots. Seas will be running 3 to 5 feet over the open waters. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your 7-day forecast. Of course, we are going to continue to track the progress of what's left of Ida. Thursday, we may see a break in some of that rainfall as most of the moisture will be to the east of us and well west of us. By the weekend, we expect a lot of moisture to move across, so showers and thunderstorms in the forecast. That's a look at our weather. Back to you, Candino.
All right, thanks a lot, Greg. And Greg is certainly keeping his eye on the tropics as we are now hours away from the official start of the Atlantic hurricane season. Be sure and follow Our News Bahamas on Facebook for all the latest developments. Thank you for joining us for Our News Tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Candino Knowles. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. And until then, have a wonderful evening.